need to get the show on the road because there's lots to talk about. For new shareholders of Tivan, because we have quite a few, we do pride ourselves on these sorts of forums. We tend to do investor briefings every 3 or 4 months. It's part of our commitment to forthright and timely communications. Tivan's also a company that's evolved very quickly. We get a lot done. It's a very highly productive environment. So the news flow tends to dictate when we do these events, and there's lots of news flow. But I did one at the start of last year, and I think it's good practice to start the year off with guidance and with some goal setting as well. And again, with that opportunity for shareholders to ask questions. So you'll see at the pack today, there's a lot of questions that have been posed online and through our corporate inbox. So I'll do my best to get to those questions. Tend to run these sessions for an hour. And as I said, I think at the start of the year, it is good practice. Also mindful that, and don't let me wade too deep in here, but I think a lot of junior mining companies, even mid-tier mining companies, I think that's where Tivan is now, are still out on their Christmas breaks. We've been back at work for 2 years, for 2 weeks, and the company's already flying. And it's very important, I think, that shareholders understand that, we're not waiting around for things to happen. We're making them happen. And we started work on the 5th. The whole team's been back already. Obviously, the world's changing quite radically already this year. And it's very much a case of, the early bird catching the worm. And it reflects really how we want to run this year at Tivan, which is great determination, great focus on what we're looking to achieve on behalf of shareholders. So I'll stop there with the broad brush intro. And what I will do is get straight into sharing the slides, which would have gone out on probably 2 lots of ASX announcements. So here we go. The first slide and the real kickoff point today to sort of frame the year is that, when we look at the year in the rearview mirror, we hope and expect to see significant advancements of practically all of the projects that we're working on in terms of this Lassonde framework. We've popularized this framework for Tivan over a couple of years now. It's a classic sort of framework. And I think that at least 5 of the projects shown will be, significantly advanced, and there's definitely prospects still of additional prospects being added to the Lassonde Curve by the end of the year. But that's really what we're about. The Speewah fluorite project remains our flagship, and it's our most dedicated focus. It's, again, a year where most of our capital expenditures will be devoted towards Speewah fluorite, probably followed by Molyhil. But the way the company's been established, and I think a big part of the value proposition is that we can do multiple things at the same times, and we can add a lot of value, incremental value, I think, intrinsic value, enterprise value to the company by also allocating resources, time and spend on some of the earlier stage projects. On the left, 3 effectively forms of guidance, in a sense, decisions as well. Through the back end of last year, we spoke a lot about Sandover fluorite and whether we were going to take a run at going straight towards DSO on Sandover fluorite and building a second fluorite project in Central Australia. In September, we acquired the Molyhil project for $8.75 million, tungsten molybdenum. That's obviously changed the narrative very significantly for the company as a whole, as well as our priorities in Central Australia. Shareholders that are close to the action will know that we got through big commissions for Sandover fluorite, and we started a drill program. It was completed in December. And you may also be aware that we've been advancing work programs at Molyhil project. Through the course of the end of the year and discussions with our joint venture partners in Japan, and also reflecting the violent move in commodity prices, particularly tungsten and molybdenum over the back end of the year, Q4, decision effectively has been made now to prioritise FID for Molyhil. So I want to be quite clear about that. And again, it reflects preferences out of Japan and also where Tivan's at as a company. We have this fantastic project shaping with Speewah fluorite project. It diversifies our interests to have a second project being built in parallel, more or less, in a different set of critical minerals being tungsten and molybdenum. It de-risks us. And you can almost think of the 2 sets of commodity prices as being at the opposite ends of the cyclical extremes at the moment. The tungsten price has absolutely gone parabolic. It's gone up 3 times effectively in 6 months. So really historical breakout and profound structural shortages ahead. That's why we bought the project when we did. That's why we started on the front foot with that negotiation way back in Q2 of last year. Fluorite prices are yet to move. And so it's great to have that attribute as well, because it means that other fluorite projects out there in the West will struggle getting to market. And when we finally get that adjustment in fluorite prices, because of the really significant supply-demand imbalance and the criticality of fluorite in the years ahead, we'll be the only ones standing. But from a corporate development point of view, it's great to have those two contrasting opportunities. And it's also obviously the case at Tivan that we want to move as fast as possible. And the reality of Molyhil is that the previous owners got to a, quote, DFS, but the project was certainly mined before, so it's considered brownfield, and that makes it much easier for us to get to a quick fire FID at Molyhil rather than chasing DSO at Sandover fluorite. So I want to be quite clear here at the top of the year that the priority is Molyhil in Central Australia for a whole bunch of very good reasons, but that's not to neglect or to in any way diminish what we believe is at Sandover fluorite. That's the second dot point. The second dot point is that we do expect to expend a lot of energy and even capital on resource definition at Sandover fluorite this year, including this year. And so we can't today speak about the assays that we will get back from Sandover fluorite, the 8 or 9 holes that we managed to complete before Christmas. But we are still expecting those assays back and to announce what we hit. And we did obviously see fluorite when we were drilling. We are on track to deliver those assay results to shareholders this month per the guidance. And we believe from there, the priorities, again, shaped by our partners in Japan, will be to drill the resource out as much as we can this year, and in parallel to develop the test work suite for the resource, aiming to prove up that we can ultimately take the Sandover fluorite resource into the same sorts of commercial pathways that we're building at Speewah fluorite. That gives our partners in Japan the ability to market Australian fluorite as a very long-term value proposition. And of course, Tivan owns all of Australia's high-grade fluorite. This has always been one of our huge competitive advantages versus other critical minerals in Australia. A lot of critical minerals are now bouncing, something that discussed extensively for those following me on Twitter. But you'll see across the whole critical mineral complex, there's always the case that there's multiple lithium producers, for example, multiple rare earth proponents, for example. Even in tungsten, there'll be us joining a couple of others. In fluorite, we're it, and we will always be it. And that is a profound value proposition for the company. So what we're planning to do is to protect, as it were, the resource base at Sandover fluorite, to prove it up as much as we can, to affirm through test work its viability and its amenability to acid spar. And with our partners in Japan, it's been made abundantly clear, I would say, that they're viewing this opportunity as critical for the long term. And in a sense, they want us to preserve the resource for acid spar, not to waste it, as it were, on the lower grade met spar, which goes into things like ceramics and metals fluxing. The acid spar at Sandover, from what we know, should be amenable to the highest specs possible. Again, semiconductors, uranium enrichment, refrigerants, and different forms of metals fluxing as well. So if you're in Japan's shoes, Molyhil goes first, fully expecting Japanese engagement in that product, and we look to preserve the opportunity at Sandover fluorite whilst defining it, because I do think from a sum of parts enterprise value perspective, if we can show to the market that we've got hopefully tens of millions of tons of really high-grade fluorite sitting next to a project that we're building in tungsten molybdenum, that will create I think, a great value proposition and a great anchor for the company over the long term. So those are the two clear decisions that have come out over reflections and learnings over the break. I also want to address preemptively some of the questions that have come up online. It's true that we bought, I think, effectively 4 projects over the past 12, 14 months for very, on incredible terms. It's like $10 million effectively to get our hands on 3 different projects in Timor-Leste, exploration projects, and then to land Molyhil, in addition to the acquisition of Sandover fluorite itself. So we went on a full binge, really, when you think about it. And it was quite deliberate. Those looking back at the guidance we provided, whether it's at the AGM or on Twitter or throughout our written remarks, would understand that we're extremely bullish on critical minerals, broadly defined, well before this turn, and that we articulated the view in terms of the geopolitical theatre that's now playing out, and particularly in terms of the impact that the Trump administration would have. I'd say if there's been a surprise over the break, it has been China's willingness to impart leverage through the dual use framework. The steps that China's taken in the past 2 weeks are very dramatic and not well understood, I would say, at all. So where does that leave us? It leaves us, frankly, sitting pretty as a company. We've got a fantastic resource base. That's one of our big competitive advantages. Again, these incredible fluorite resources in Australia with a huge moat around those. Molyhil Tungsten project is incredible, and over the course of the next couple of months, we'll be able to share with shareholders how incredible it is. And I think that's really going to be an accelerant this year. And of course, we've got this profound upside in Timor, which as shareholders, I think, are really starting to appreciate. And even back in Central Australia with Sandover AI, back at Earth AI today in Sydney. So it's great to be back in the fold with the team. And the broad strategy is, I'm never going to say that, because this question's come up, I'm never going to literally rule out Tivan doing more acquisitions. I really believe in acquisitions as a way to grow the company. But we're not going to be paying up for like a silver project. Silver's just gone parabolic. We're going to try and find silver, which is what we were trying to do initially, because I was very bullish on silver before it took off too. So the right thing to do at the big corporate level at the moment is to consolidate our progress and to deliver the Speewah fluorite project, and then sequentially deliver the Molyhil project, whilst trying to really take advantage of the great capabilities that we've built up in the geo team and the exploration capabilities that we have through our partnership with Earth AI as well. So we are going to be investing in Central Australia with Earth AI to try to move things along. We've got really good relationships with, obviously, the Central Land Council, and we've got 2 years of work behind us right across that huge, vast area. So Roman and his team are back at it. They've already done some, electromag surveys. We'll get the results of that in most likely February, and that will set the tone for the year in Central Australia. Meanwhile, in Timor, we're flat chat. We hope to conclude the Bacau-Osu transaction in the next week. It's a very complicated transaction, much more complicated than it appeared at the time. And that'll give us, as I said at the AGM, effectively the run of the most prospective opportunities for critical minerals right across Timor. And we're going to keep building the team up there, and we're going to really give it everything we've got. We don't, again, addressing a question that we've already received, we don't anticipate drilling this year in Timor-Leste. Again, it could change if circumstances change, but we do anticipate moving up from all of the surface sampling and stream sediment sampling that we've conducted, leveraging the work that already has taken place at Bacau on Osu with Beacon. We've inherited all of that data, and it's good. It's very good. And looking to use different forms of surveys to enhance the knowledge base right across all of these tenements in Timor, with then a view to defining drill targets quite precisely by the end of the year, putting us in a position where we can drill Timor in scale, even in difficult locations, all throughout 2027. That's sort of the baseline expectation in the team at the moment. So again, broadly conceived, we're aiming to really accelerate the development of Speewah fluorite this year. Huge build out for the team, working through not just environmental approvals, but the key milestones. We will ultimately be judged as a company on how we travel at Speewah fluorite this year, and rightly so. And we're feeling very optimistic about it, let me say. Molyhil, I think, will be, as I said, a great catalyst and a great accelerant throughout the course of this year. And then Sandover fluorite ultimately taking shape in adjacent format. Whilst we really have a go at these exploration projects, I really believe in these low delta options that we've put together. And I'd say effectively we've got three big shots. You know, Sandover AI, we've got multiple areas where we've already done quite a bit of work, and we can easily move to drilling if the circumstances warrant it. Right across Timor-Leste is, as I think it was George at the AGM talking about elephant country, or maybe it was Jason, that remains the case. And we've got this Walsh's Wall, the Gossan back at Sandover fluorite. I've seen it now. Everyone's excited about it. We will be able to get the right permissions to drill it at some point this year. So I'll pause here on the first slide. It's a long summation of the year ahead, but this is really where we are. It's about making good decisions, executing at velocity, and advancing the entire value proposition that Tivan now represents along that framework. There is still possibilities that we'll be acquiring other projects that fit our mission, but we'll not be paying up for projects, and will we not be, undermining one of the most important achievements of the company, which is to have solved for dilution. So we're in great shape in terms of our balance sheet. There is no need to go chasing projects which now might be overvalued through share issuance or placement rounds. We're in a fantastic position, and it's time to push on. Okay, a bit more briefly. At Speewah, we're coming off 23 kilometres of drilling last year, really momentous achievement for the team. And we've advised the market in November that we're going to print this feasibility study. It's a huge milestone. We've been working on it for practically 18 months, and I'm very pleased to say that we will be delivering that feasibility study on that schedule. We've been back at it really hardcore for the past 2 weeks, including really significant meetings already with our joint venture partners in Japan. So that's Sumitomo and JOGMEC. Imagine like 3-hour technical committee meetings, for example. That's to bring them right up to alignment with where we've got to on the engineering, the geology, all of the assay results coming through, so that when we get to February, and you can see here we've listed the actual mechanics that we're going to go through in February, that we can confidently proceed. So for the markets, I think we'll be delivering the draft feasibility report. It'll probably be 100 pages, 150 pages to Japan. That will be buttressed by hundreds more pages of engineering documents, geology, all of the data that we're sharing. They'll be wading through all of that and aiming to sign off on it as our joint venture partner, ETFS Capital, similar protocol, a couple of weeks. And that's part of the joint venture agreement. And what we're looking to achieve is adoption of the feasibility study report, the milestone achieved by the end of February. I think we'll achieve that. And then following that, and as part of that, JFC signs off on tranche 2, and we have further funding for the project. So that's what's ahead. Again, our whole team is in Perth, especially, is dedicated to achieving this important milestone, and we are very much on track. Now, ahead of that, and this is, I think, very important for the markets, especially, and we've had this question, we will publish a JORC resource estimate update for Speewah fluorite. So this reflects all of the drilling that we did last year. Now, the drilling went beyond exploration drilling. A lot of the drilling that we got through last year was to do with geotech, for example, hydrology, for example. These are the sorts of drilling programs that we need to do to build a mine. But we also did a lot of exploration drilling, and it's shown here in this map on the right-hand side. So the green is the near pit potential for resource extension where we've already drilled over the course of last year. Now, I've had some questions as to why we haven't released these results, and perhaps the easiest way to explain it in terms of how much data there is. Imagine 23 kilometres of drilling, and imagine with the RC drilling that we're breaking all of the drill holes down into 1 metre lots. And even with the diamond drilling, you're breaking every single drill hole down into different lithologies. You end up, in our case, with around 23,000 samples that we're working through. So it's an incredibly data-intensive period at the company, and we're working with independents on the resource update. That's SRK. So SRK, we wanted always to have that independent check on the block model, the wireframes, the resource definition, and we're working very closely with them. Now, we have a read. We have a read on what we've drilled last year, but it's not my job today to share that. I'm not a geologist. I'm not a competent person. No, actually, I'm a very competent person, but I'm not a competent person in the way that it's defined for geology. So I don't want to comment. I shouldn't comment. Other than to perhaps say, north of the creek, we think that it's unlikely now that the resource will extend up there. And frankly, we're all relieved about that, because chasing the fluorite resource north of the creek was going to be challenging for social license purposes. Near pit, to my eyes, looks fantastic. And we think holistically that there'll be many opportunities potentially between what we currently have defined as the conceptual pit and this G vein over here. But the source of truth for this analysis is frankly SRK. They are working away for probably another week or two before they will share their opinions on where the JORC estimate should be redefined to. Meanwhile, our team has started already preparing for 2026. We've seen enough to believe that it's going to be very important for us to drill between these two veins. It's never been done. And obviously, if we can find more fluorite between these two systems, it could be quite easy to convert economically, because the mine pit is very simple to extend along with the proximity to all of the infrastructure. So it's a wait and see for now. The mood internally is good. Main thing I wanted to convey to shareholders is please be patient with things like this. It's not that we're sitting on results. It's that there's a huge amount of data to be interpreted, and it's coming through in fits and starts from the assays. And we're working in conjunction with SRK, and it's SRK that holds the source of truth on this. And until such time as they're signing off on the JORC, we won't be commenting. And so that will be the last week of January, though. And as I said, at the end of the year, we are now expecting assay results from Sandover fluorite from Timor. And this one is clearly the most important, Speewah fluorite JORC estimate. That will all happen in the month of January. And I think it will consolidate the strong start that we've already made to the year. So that's Speewah. Huge year ahead. For both Speewah and Sandover, I did want to touch on this very briefly, because we do have a lot of new shareholders, and sometimes we get questions about why fluorite and why is it important. Without going into all this technical detail, people can read up on it on their own time. Over the break, China published for the 20th time what's known as the dual use catalogue. They've continuously upgraded this framework, and many countries have import and export lists. Even Australia does have that. It's just not used very often because it pertains to things like munitions exports, for example. China instead now has 200 pages of export classifications, and effectively they're building a form of system control logic which will apply to the entire global trading system. They have enumerated extensively this year all of these different forms of fluorinated chemicals, fluorinated systems, fluorinated machinery. And I've included these items as an appendix for people that want to understand how vital the stuff that we're working on is to the industrial complex right across North Asia. If you look through this list, you will see, even from a lay interpretation, equipment and chemicals which obviously sit upstream of semiconductors, which obviously sit upstream of nuclear enrichment as well. And then you'll see metals fluxing and refrigerants and so on and so forth. This same list, according to China's MOFCOM on January 6th, is now restricted in terms of China exporting to Japan for military purposes or for any use which could be deemed to be such. Now, that is a form of, in my view, ambiguity, which China intends to exploit vis-a-vis Japan in particular for some geopolitical reasons at the moment. It makes it very, very difficult for anyone in these supply chains in Japan to rely upon China in respect of fluorite, and it obviously increases the incentive that Japan has to see Tivan succeed with our fluorite projects in Australia, because we do represent a trusted source of long-term supply and the only one that's available in Asia. And so this is a very, very big development. It's not understood at all in markets because it is, I guess, esoteric. It's buried in a lot of language which you have to translate. But we have people working for us that monitor these things extremely closely, both in the West and in the East, in China. So we're right across it. And obviously we're in touch with our partners in Japan every day. And so we understand the significance of what happens. And over the break, we are here to support our partners in Japan. I would say that it's added urgency overall to our situation. The Australian federal government is aware of that urgency, and I believe that it will open up additional pathways and things for us to do with Japan. Now, I can't get into all of these things. It's the second week of the year, and some of this is very, very sensitive. But again, to get ahead of some of these AMA questions, there's been parallels drawn to Linus and a few other things. And, after the last couple of weeks, I think some of these parallels are now starting to become quite fair comment. There is a dependency that is showing up in these sorts of actions that Tivan can use for our desire to build a company of strategic importance. Like it's very hard, I think, for Japan and even for other parts of Northern Asia, which I won't talk to contemplate the future of some of these supply chains without our involvement. Now, that means that we have obviously a big responsibility, I think, to deliver. And it also puts us in a very good position to take advantage of policy tools that are available. I've listed some there, and that is obviously a big priority for us this year. But ultimately, we are here, and we've said from the top that we're here to build long-term, trusted, respected partnerships in Japan. And so if our partners have a moment of need ahead, we're not going to be exploiting that need. We're going to be assisting them through a difficult spot, and we're going to be building our company up for the long term. That is analogous, I think, to where Linus sat around 2010, 11, 12. And it is the perspective that our board has held throughout these past couple of years. And it is the perspective that we will continue to operate with. If anything, we'll be going in the how else can we help direction. And some of the things that we think that we can help on with Japan are things that I believe are attainable and things that no one has yet speculated on. Even some of our closer shareholders don't understand the things that we can achieve with Japan from here. So an exciting year ahead in that partnership, but also with really significant responsibilities, corporate responsibilities, bilateral responsibilities. We take these matters very seriously. And I'd say there's also a level of concern with what's happening globally at the moment. I'll be in Japan in March, advancing these discussions and dynamics. And then I will be in New York and Washington to take the pulse over there, including meetings at high levels with the US government. So it's a really important time. It's really important that we don't look at these dynamics through a sort of myopic lens. There's a lot going on in the world. We've earned our seat at the table, and we intend to behave honourably and respectfully throughout as the company matures. And if we execute well, inevitably, Tivan will achieve its mission of becoming a strategically important company across the north of Australia. Molyhil, I won't spend too much time here, but I do want to say that I believe this opportunity will shape really quickly this year, and at least some parts of our newfound share base will end up buying into Tivan because we've got a tungsten project and we've got an incredibly attractive tungsten project because it's got some incredible characteristics. The first couple of years of mining will be at super, super high grades for tungsten and molybdenum. That means that we can also move very, very fast to get to production because those grades are high and because it's brownfield. We don't need to go through really complex processing and test work to get to a first product. We can keep it pretty simple and we can achieve commercial specs very easily, and then we can add additional capex items as the mine is already in production to continue to improve recovery grades. So it's a really, we've done about 4 months of really hardcore work on the project now, and the more we get into it, the more we like it. Like we think it is just tremendously capable of being developed, and that's across all of the things that you want to see. Test work, infrastructure, water, project facilitation, especially. It's moved so fast that we haven't even completed this transaction yet. So we are still working through processes with the Northern Territory Government and Central Land Council. We really do hope to culminate those processes in the next week or so, and to also carry over the permissions that were previously agreed to drill for more tungsten, meaning that we'd be able to drill as soon as March. Now, it's not the case typically that those sorts of permissions, particularly sacred site permissions in the Northern Territory, get carried over to a new proponent, but I believe that will be granted to Tivan because of our strong standing in Central Australia, meaning that we're able to put out today, this is the first time we're showing this to the market, an incredibly rapid fire path to an FID in 2027. Now, again, critical minerals projects, it's 10 to 15 years, guys, to build something. Trump and all these others can say what they want, but it is a long, long pathway to build anything new anywhere in the West. In the case of Molyhil, we're flagging early that we think the whole thing can be wrapped up within 3 years. So a couple of years here, through key test work, some early drilling to validate all the drilling that's already been done, and then a rapid fire journey through studies. The scoping study, April, that will be the first reveal of potential NPV of this project. Now, again, bear in mind, we bought it for 8 of cash and future shares. I think this will ultimately resemble the sorts of, dramatic payoffs that we've been able to achieve at Speewah and potentially at Sandover fluorite again. So multi bagger. It looks fantastic, and we hope to have some numbers out to validate that as soon as April. That will also set the basis for an early stage joint venture. And I've explained this extensively, why we do joint ventures at Tivan in terms of bringing in partners that can really add value to project development, which is, critically important from our perspective, and also to ultimately avoid dilution. That's also critically important. I think both of those things can be achieved once again at Molyhil, and I hope to be in a position to wrap up a joint venture in Q2. So really rapid developments here. We're not going to just rely upon the tungsten price at 1,000. There are attributes of this resource and project which make it unique, and we really just want to move fast as we can. Noting that if anyone else decides to try and build a greenfield tungsten project, it will probably be 5 to 10 years of hardcore development. If we can be 3, then we are most likely to be able to access these incredibly high prices that we're seeing in tungsten at the moment. Now, just give me 1 sec because I'm going to lose power here unless I change something. Just give me 1 sec. I think you've probably all seen that I'm wearing shorts. That's because I'm working very hard, okay? And it's still hot in Sydney. Okay, so enough on Molyhil. I do think it's a super exciting development. Alongside of it, we'll be drilling Sandover fluorite, as I said earlier, and the aspiration, I guess, that I had from the start to build something in Central Australia is firmly on track. It's happening. It's going to happen. I think I said this in one of my more punchy tweets last year, along the lines of that I would make it happen. And, we've had some good fortune here. Like, I couldn't necessarily take credit for the tungsten price going to where it's got to, but I did think it was obviously possible. But what we have achieved is an incredible acquisition, side-by-side acquisitions. We have embedded optionality through high-grade fluorite veins, which we've already discovered, which no one knew about, including ones on the Molyhil tenement. We found this gossan that no one knew about and could be, frankly, anything. And we're in a situation where we can leverage all of the great standing and relationships that we have in Central Australia. And Molyhil's particularly amenable because ultimately we're going to only be moving around a couple of thousand tonnes of product. Both moly and tungsten are such high value products that you don't need to move a lot of goods around, which makes the remote location practically irrelevant. Like, it doesn't matter that's in Central Australia, except for me, because that's where I grew up. And there's a very, very legitimate prospect now that 300 kilometres from Alice, there will be a major critical minerals project and precinct, and it will be owned and developed by Tivan in the next couple of years. And that's a source of great pride and a source of great motivation, and it will drive this company forward. And it will certainly keep me super energetic and super focused on delivering this for shareholders and also for Alice and also for Japan. Okay, a couple of corporate slides, and then I'll jump straight into Q&A. We've received quite a few questions about the possibility of Tivan already going into the ASX 300. This is the most followed index in Australian capital markets, so can understand why it's a focus. A couple of comments here at the top. Tivan's mission is to build a company of strategic importance across Northern Australia. If we achieve that mission, we will go into the index. So that's our focus. We're focused on trying to get into the index, okay? I want to be quite clear about that. But if we stay on the path that we're on and continue to execute as well as we have, particularly over the past 2 years, it's inevitable that we'll get into the index. So that's the first point. The second point is I do understand why particularly our smart money investor base offshore is pretty laser focused on this topic. If you think about the past 18 months, we've endured a very challenging flow against Tivan's shares. And this is no secret, I've narrated this extensively, which resulted from the convertible bond financing that we undertook in March of 2024. That resulted in a net sale program against Tivan on market for the most part. I did 3 or 4 block trades, as I said I would. But yeah, we're talking about 100 million shares being sold, including in relatively messy fashion today. For example, with the very last set of trades that L1 will do on market. It's out of the way, but it's been a headwind. And for those that are following the stock closely, they'll have seen that and they'll recognize that. Now, what happens if we get into the index? Well, the flows will tip violently in the opposite direction because we have an investor base which is principally Australian retail, and then that smart money cohort offshore. We have a hollow middle, and it's that middle which will have to get filled in through index rebalancing. And then on top of that, index rebalancing, to the extent that it occurs, often gets satiated through placement issuance with the big brokers, and that will not be happening at Tivan. I've been abundantly clear about that. They are starting to call in the index trackers and ARB funds, and my response is quite simple, which is to say, look over there, that's called a secondary market. Go and use it for a reason. So we've got a hard line here. We understand these dynamics extremely well. Like I think, perhaps some others in the mining sector don't necessarily understand the plumbing as much as we do. And again, just to emphasize that we're not looking to target it, but we do understand that particularly into March, when it could be possible that Tivan gets included, that we'll get a lot of questions around it. So all I want to do today is just say that, we're alive to it. Our focus is really on building the company. If you want to try to get into the predictive implications of index inclusion, then you can read through the rules. Tivan will clearly qualify on the listing and domicile test. Not all companies do, even ones with larger market cap than us. Tivan will clearly qualify on liquidity. So, and again, not all companies above us will qualify. We'll have to get to 274th. That sounds ambitious from where we are, but frankly, it's not, because a lot of companies fail those tests, or a lot of companies with larger market caps are exchange traded funds, and they also don't qualify. So it will come down to our free float market capitalization. This company has a very high free float. If you step back, really only ETFS Capital is probably the one shareholder that might not be regarded as free float, because they are in escrow as part of our strategic partnership. And so if we have a high free float percentage and our share price fills in over the next period, it's like a 3-month type assessment, it's going to be close. And we'll see what happens if it happens. I think the reason to emphasize it is that if you think about what lies ahead and allocators deciding to come into the story that we're creating and the valuation frameworks that I articulated at the AGM, that's all well and good. However, in this instance, we're talking about a very large flow, much more significant than the L1 flow, but in the positive direction, which is entirely agnostic to the price. It doesn't matter if these sorts of index trackers like the story, don't like the story. If it goes into the index, they have to buy it. It's completely insensitive to the price and to the underlying story. And the numbers, to be fair, are extremely significant. So it's something for shareholders to think about. We are mindful of it. We are receiving a lot of questions on it. I don't want to over-egg it. And I do want to say very, very clearly once again that our focus is on executing corporate strategy and building the company in alignment with our mission. And if we do that, these sorts of dynamics will naturally take care of themselves. A happy chart to finish with. This is our footprint because it deserves some airplay. We think now Tivan has retail ownership around 60%. For those that know ASX 300 companies and so forth, that is an insanely high statistic. So for guidance, most ASX 300 companies have retail issues somewhere between 5 and 12.5%. I mean, this is according to the Australian Institute of Shareholders. They did a survey. It's probably not perfect, but call it 10%. And we're sitting here at 60%. And then we've got this sort of barbell with a bunch of offshore legacy accounts, as well as some of the most pedigreed, most respected investors on the whole planet that I've brought into the company over the past 2 years. So it's a very unusual situation. I love it because it's got this fairy tale quality where, we got rid of the bad guys, we've turned the company, and we hope that our retail base can hang on for the duration because it will result in life-changing capital appreciation and accumulation for many. We have some hot spots. I have to give a shout out to so the guys in Albury Wodonga, that's a lot of legacy capital. But yeah, fantastic that they made the map in such form and seem to have multiplied somehow. Kuda, thank you for your support, particularly in some of the placement rounds. I haven't been to Kuda in a while, but I'm told that the streets might be paved in tungsten if we pull many of these objectives off. So thanks for the steadfast support. And of course, it's great to see, on a more serious note, the local penetration that Tivan's got now in the territory. We are very serious about branding Tivan out around this territory and iconography, and to see Darwin get behind the company in the way that it has, Catherine, Alice down the bottom, and importantly, Kununurra. That's where we're based. Canada is only a small town. And so to see the word of mouth start to go around town and for people to put a toe in, it's great. I think it shows that the company is respected, and once people are part of the journey, they tend to stay around. So it's a very powerful dynamic, and it's a very unusual register. It does owe to the 249, but it does put us in a really, really good position to continue to extract maximum value for shareholders as the company grows. We're no longer beholden to anyone. We've delevered the company. The flows that were, impeding perhaps our progress have now finished. We are on the cusp potentially of really significant non-price sensitive flows in the opposite bullish direction over the next while. And if we stay on track, nothing would make me happier than to see Retail Australia benefit and for Tivan to be the most held company by retail Australians. Because again, we're not going to be doing placement rounds to super funds and to Vanguard and BlackRock. It's not happening here. The answer is no. If you're watching today, no. Call someone else. If you want to get your shares, talk to one of our long-standing shareholders, or let's see the price move to a point where, some of our retailers also want to take some profits. So it's a very interesting setup. But again, the focus of the company is on executing right across the Lassonde Curve. Nonetheless, it's a feel-good story, and I wanted to share some of these metrics today with everyone at the start of the year. Okay, so to AMA, briefly, a lot of these questions I've already covered, so I'm going to pull through this in real quick time today. And nonetheless, recognise, as I always do, that we're very much about accountability at Tivan. And so when the questions do roll in, as they do, we try to group them and we do address them. And if they're complex, we're happy to write and we're happy to field, one-on-one questions as well. That will happen, through the course of the year. But today's just the start. So, just let me rip through to close all of this out. So firstly, from Pro, on the 3 programs, I've addressed this extensively, Pro, in the introductory comments. The main thing to say is that we will be releasing, these 3 sets of asset results in January, as we guided. I'm not sure why people thought January 15. There's a lot of work to do at the labs. I said January's January, so I don't know. And we haven't seen the results from Timor or from Sandover fluorite. We're working through massive amounts of data at Speewah fluorite. All will be revealed this month. In terms of the drilling programs and resourcing of the company, Tivan, we have plenty of resources now. This is both financial resources, but the team's grown. We're up to about 35 people. We are on a major push with HR that will extend pretty much all the way through this year. So we have the capacity, absolutely. We've also taken decisions over the break to dedicate different people to different projects. So we now have panels of geologists, meaning that they can work alternate shifts in continuity at Speewah, at Central Australia, so Molyhil, Sandover fluorite, and at Timor. Okay, so we have enough people and enough muscle now to run all of those projects simultaneously without any downtime. That will lead to more news flow, more progress out the Lassonde Curve, and so on and so forth. This is the power of money, essentially. So we have completely transformed financial situation of the company, but we're still being careful about who we bring in and how we bring these people in. To give you a sense, though, of Tivan achieving one of its interim goals, which was to become an employer of choice. We put out 2 job ads just before Christmas. The first, HSEC, we had 450 applicants, and the second, which is like procurement contracts manager, pushing 300 applicants. So as far as the job market's concerned, like the word is out about Tivan, that we're a great place to work. That's really, really important to the vitality and vibrancy of the company. It means we're in a position to build the team with people that are really values aligned and that want to come on the journey and want to work hard. Bob Cole, how is communities, how are we supporting communities? that would take me hours, Bob. So one highlight I want to mention, because it was in one of our announcements just before Christmas, is that we've been working with the Central Land Council around Alice on a community development proposal. Hope to announce this in February. There's some chance it gets delayed into March, April, because it will involve potentially some matching capital from Canberra. What we're looking to do here is to invest in community early and preemptively to strengthen communities out from really Aileron out towards Atitira, in conjunction with the Central Land Council. And this can be a pretty wide gamut of social investment. And the reason we're doing it is that we now believe firmly that Tivan will be the first major project in the vicinity of Alice Springs, pretty much ever. If you think about granite, Tanami, that's like 1,200 kilometres away. Arafura still has a very difficult journey to get to first production at Nolan's. That leaves Molyhil and Sandover fluorite and Tivan in pole position to achieve this. That's just going to cause so much uplift in Alice. Mark my words, Alice will get behind Tivan in ways that perhaps no other town in the country would. At the same time, the communities we're operating in on the way out to the Harts Range are very, very fragile. So we want to work early, and we're going to agree with CLC to a broad community development initiative. It'll be money extremely well spent. It will strengthen our ability to build workforce and procurement. And I think it will lead to other very good things in the territory, one of which I hope to announce in Q1 as well. So another really significant development that will reframe very positively the way that Tivan is perceived in the territory and perhaps right around Australia. So really exciting work that's going on in that portfolio. Timor-Leste is another big conversation on that topic, Bob, but in the interest of time, I'll park that for another day. Oriel, I'm going to skip that question if you don't mind. There's lots of reasons to invest in Tivan, but it's really about our comparative advantages, which we've previously articulated. And I'd say the one thing I would emphasize again today, because markets have obviously turned in favor of Critical Minerals Company, Tivan will remain incredibly disciplined on the capital structure side. Graham Tuckwell said this for me at the AGM about that's it for placements. I think he's right. It's best coming from him rather than me. That will put Tivan in this very unique position of having stabilised and capped out shares on issuance. Again, emphasising the point that the shareholders we've currently got are our shareholders. This is their company, and it can stay like that. That is incredibly different than every other critical minerals or rare earths company in Australia, and we're dead serious about it. In terms of further acquisitions and commodity prices, I'm going to skip this set of questions altogether because I've addressed it up top. Never say never on acquisitions, but with the big rip in commodity prices, it's time to accelerate exploration. Let's go find something and to deliver on the projects that we've already acquired. If something comes along which is perfect in terms of our acquisition, and if it's a price which I deem to be viable, then fine, we'll do it. But we're not going to necessarily chase things, and we're not looking further afield either. So tremendous amount of discipline and focus. Those buying antimony projects or silver projects now will lose money, definitely. The price of entry on any project is critically important, and we achieved incredible entry prices over the past couple of years. So now is the time to capitalise on those achievements. For Japan, I've addressed this as well, so I think I can skip through pretty quickly. The last point's important, though. There are other ways for Tivan to leverage its relationship. I don't like using the word leverage because of what I've said. I think there's been some real vulnerabilities displayed in the past couple of weeks. We're there to support Japan and to build long-term trusted relationships. That's how to build a company of strategic importance. It's to be there. And so There are other ways, though, for those opportunities to present themselves and for Tivan to be involved in things which have never happened before. And those are the things that motivate me and can really differentiate Tivan from the crowd. In terms of Speewah fluorite, traditional own engagement, financing approvals, WA royalties, those are all really fair questions. TO engagement has been a 3-year journey. As I said at the AGM, we're approaching this year with a great deal of positivity. I expect that we will wrap up the first of the ILUAs towards the end of Q1, early Q2. That's to do with the access road. We've said in one of our ASX announcements just before Christmas that commercial terms have been agreed, and that is the case. That's a huge amount of work to have got through. And we're working on a similar process and protocol with Nandua, which is the traditional owner group, a new traditional owner group is formed around the Speewah site. This will be a process that we're looking to bring to fruition in Q2. That will be a more challenging process because it's a new group and because it involves the mine site. But we're, as I said, approaching this topic with a great deal of positivity, given all the work that we've done. Also, a great source of personal focus and joy in some ways. I hope to actually be living in Kununurra in Q2 to wrap up some of these processes and to work through the environmental approvals and to continue to bed down the social license for the project in and around town. So yeah, it's shaping well. It's consistent with all of the projects announcements that we've made, and similarly with the financing approvals. Obviously, we secured the finalisation with ETFSS over Christmas. That was a great step forward. We are on track with NAIF and the EFA, along with Japan on the financing side. So no reason to be concerned there. On the contrary, I think as Graham said at the AGM, it's highly, highly unusual to be this advanced, effectively fully financed at this stage of project development. WA royalty, we did 2 hours again today with the WA government, so they understand that we're looking for a decision in Q1, and we hope that's the right decision. So let's see what we play out there. NAIF and EFA are longer term processes that will culminate in the back end of this year. We tend to do quarterly updates with both groups. Everything is proceeding on time, on plan, and consistent with the way EFA and NAIF engage with all other successful projects. Feasibility study, CapEx went up. It's a very good question, and I think it's a very fair question. So what assurance can we give that CapEx won't blow out next month? The best answer to that is that when we picked the Speewah fluorite project up, we picked up a scoping study with a CapEx of 70 million. And I think I've said this, I've used this word before, so I'm going to use it again, which is we knew that was bullshit and that it was very typical of how junior miner companies operate. They just throw mud around and pretend it's going to stick. So we spent a lot of time on our PFS. It's an unbelievable PFS if you take the time to read it. It's 130 pages long, I think, incredible level of detail. And the costings came out at 260 million. So we're already like 4x, less 30 million for the co-access road. So we 4x'd it already. And I think more from that can give you tremendous assurance that there's not going to be this CapEx blowout, which does characterize many projects. The reality at the moment is there's not many studies going around. Most people are just getting back on their feet because they suffered for 18 months. There was a raft of PFSs and FSs back in the lithium bubble of 2020, 21, 22. And all of those companies, more or less, and there's a couple of exceptions, but most of them gapped CapEx multiple times on the way through the stage gates. Now, often they blamed COVID, and that was fair to a point. Sometimes they had, big changes in the resource definition, or they were, trying to upscale a project. So perhaps you can characterize it that way. But listen, sitting here at Tivan, I think that, naturally you're going to have some things that go against you over 18 months. There's been inflation over these 18 months as well. But if you've done the work, and we have, you're really sitting here with risks and opportunities. And there may be changes at FS, even to the production target Like we might try to upscale the project a little bit because there's so much demand for what we're doing. If that leads to a bit of extra capex, that's great. But these are decisions that we can make because we've put the work in and because we published a very authentic and very credible PFS 18 months, 20 months ago. So we were building on really high quality work for these past 18 months. And Wolfram, I think that's the greatest assurance I can give you, that things are going to be okay in February. And I think as well, you'll have that stamp of approval from Japan, because don't forget they'll be being asked to put in that second tranche of funding. And we've already got ETFS doing that. They've just signed off and they just put in acceleration capital. So you can sense from all of that dynamics, the parties with the superior information who are right at the table learning, we're learning at the moment, they're pushing money into the project. So hopefully that gives you some assurance as well that things are looking good. And of course, we're all waiting with bated breath on the JORC resource estimate upgrade at the end of January. So we'll see how that goes. And perhaps one quick point there is that even if we do get a resource upgraded in January, we won't be able to integrate that into the feasibility study straight away. That will go into the DFS. And that will mean, an even stronger project at DFS and FID. And so with the drilling this year. And if there are other co-products at Speewah fluorite, and there might be a co-product that no one's conceived of yet, a lot of that will go into the project at FID. And so let's see what all plays out. But I think I can give you my personal assurance that we're not going to see the sorts of capex blowouts, like things that doubling, tripling. It was a really heady period in 2020, 21, 22. But the disciplines and the work that we've put in will ultimately pull us through these milestones. Molyhil Sandover, briefly, because I think I'm pretty much out of time here. The discovery of fluorite north of Molyhil is great. From what we've seen so far, we need to get the assay results, but some of the veins up to the north appear to be dipping on a slightly different angle, which may assist in terms of resource definition. So we're actually quite interested in that area, and more will be revealed as we get through resource definition this year. US EXIM, unlikely to be involved. As I said, I'm going to the US. I'm seeing old friends, including very high up in the US government. But Tivan has been very clear about us prioritizing Japan, and we are very dedicated in that mission. And so there will still be very important conversations in New York and Washington, but I don't believe that we need US EXIM Bank. And I don't think that it would be additive to the joint venture that we're looking to put together in such rapid time. In terms of the Walsh's Wall and the Barrack Gossan, Gerard, listen, we don't know what's underneath it. There's different theories here. I hope it's tungsten. I think Steve thinks it's copper. We don't want to strike out. We have to work through some planning and mapping, that's correct. And then we have to get approvals from Central Land Council and then go through one of these anti-government processes. I think we'll be drilling the Gossan by mid-year. That's my estimate at this point. It is a priority. As Steve said, most junior companies should just be focusing on that. It looks so great. But yeah, we don't want to build things up too much either. So the undertaking, I think, from me today is that we will drill the Gossan this year. We might do some aeromag before as well, just to try to understand it. But it is a priority in a world where exploration is itself a priority. DSO, Thai Invest, as I said right at the top, focus now is on Molyhil. And with our Japanese partners, they really want us to preserve the Sandover fluorite resource for acid spark. It's that important for Japan, what we're working on. It really, really is. The ability for us to not just hit these 97% specs, but to do so without arsenic and without other forms of impurities, which are debilitating. It'll become clearer through the first half of this year why that's so important to Japan. And in a sense, they don't want us to waste the resort on DSO at Spa, which would be for such a low value strategic use. So Molyhil as well is going super fast, and we don't want to have to duplicate permissions, approvals, negotiations of ILUAs and so on and so forth. So that decision's been made, and Molyhil is the way to go. But let's see if we can drill out tens of millions of tons at Sandover fluorite. If we present that to market, I think that's already a very, very important part of the narrative. Paul, I think I've spelled a lot out on the critical minerals vision in Central Australia, so I'll move straight on to the last slide. Drilling in Timor, as I said, this year is all about building the team out, building the capabilities, making sure we settle that big transaction at the end of last year, and then moving towards drilling next year. But we should be able to deploy lots of other forms of surveys this year, which will give us further guidance. And I'd say, I'm looking forward to some of these early samples coming back from the new tenements as well. Like, we know quite a lot from the vendors, like a lot. And put it this way, like, we're really excited to have taken control of that ground. And I think there will be pretty much immediate gratification once we're able to do a bit of extra work and start putting the samples through the workflows that we've already established. Yeah. Sandover AI, we've discussed this, and quick shout out to Norm, who's helped us locate the pimple. Roman and his team are still quite bullish on aileron in terms of that lead silver prospect, and that's the reason why he really wanted to push on and to do these extra electromagnetic surveys, and we're paying for that, and that's fine, because again, we've got the resources, and we always want to defer, I think, to Roman's expertise. He views the world differently than conventional geologists. We want that diversified view. So we did pause things, for about 6 months, just while we were working through our other priorities last year, but we're back at it now. And with the support of Central Land Council, and again, all of that community work that we're doing, we hope we can find other things in Central Australia. So we'll be doing everything we can. Silver rock, I did predict it was going to take off, so hopefully we can find it. I'm not that bullish on silver up here, just to be clear. Unlike other critical minerals, you will see a huge amount of desilvering in the next couple of years. It is easy for established mines to bring on silver. There'll be an attempt in China to remove silver from PV, like photovoltaic supply chains. And so I do think you'll see a cyclical supply reaction in silver of really significant magnitude, but it'd be really fun to find. There'll be some critical minerals where that can't happen. Tungsten in the West and fluorite, the stuff that we're really committed to. So yeah, let's go find silver. But we've got a lot of other things we're hunting for as well in Central Australia. And I hope that this wave of critical minerals, interest can ultimately transmit into sustained project development in Central Australia for the first time. Again, that was a really important motivation for me, commencing with Tivan, and I want to stay that particular course. Vanadium is still on the outer. I don't necessarily expect it to be included in the strategic reserve. We are talking to WA government about it because they're putting together this Kalgoorlie battery initiative. And so that could lead to, some additional focus on it from us this year, but we've got so much else on, and it still, in my view, doesn't satisfy the commercial requirements to build a project, not Speewah as such. But that there's insufficient offtake market to satisfy what you need to satisfy to get through a big project development round. So if it is ever to happen in this country, I do think it will be Speewah, because we'll have Speewah fluorite up and running by then with all of that infrastructure and all of those, the aspects of mine development that can create natural synergies, particularly towards mine closure. But that's some distance away. It might be quite some distance away at Speewah. So maybe then vanadium will have its day. But it's the least of our priorities. And if we get to the end of the year and we've moved 5 of our projects decisively along the Lassonde Curve and vanadium still sitting in the orphan, that's fine. That's absolutely fine and probably expected, to be frank. Last question from Bauer 3 on corporate. Yes, options. We have seen the chatter online. We are aware that the options have gone into the money. That's great. The bonus options were issued to shareholders back 2 or 3 years ago as a gesture from the board and an invitation to stay the course. I was always confident that we'd turn it. I don't know where the share price is going to go over the next 3-6 months. I do think it's very, very likely that many of these options will be exercised, and that's great. If they've got intrinsic value, fantastic. And it does mean obviously cash into Tivan and that we can head towards that fully diluted market cap, which I referred to at the AGM, noting that because most of these options were issued to existing shareholders, that we're still going to have this fantastic constituent composition of the company, which again is Aussie retail, mums and dads, particularly mums and dads that had a really hard time for a decade at TNG, now making good, along with this offshore smart money cohort. So it's a really interesting dynamic. I'm glad as well that our team is participating. They bloody well deserve to. I think it's a really perfect setup, for sustained wealth creation. And I hope as well, in some ways, that for some of our shareholders, that Tivan might be a little reminder that capitalism can work. Like, I do worry now in Australia that with the tax rate where it is, some of the messaging from government, the next generation as well, I don't know if they understand how to create wealth in this country or that it should even be a priority. Tivan's, is going to be a wealth creating company. We already are. But we'll have our own way of doing things, which is to say that we do want to share the benefits of our projects really overtly as well with community, with traditional owners as well, in Timor, with community up there, with the country. So we've got our own way of doing things, but we are very much about, wealth creation here. And I think we're just only starting to see that. But I think it will be sustained and the options will be part of that journey. So we can't give financial advice. We will update the website. There will be some smoothing of these processes. That is to say, it's likely that we'll ask Computershare to set up like a registry or like a BPay where you can just go in and exercise your options, and it'll be almost like an SPP. We won't do it right yet, but we can still handle the manual options being sent to us once a week. But if at some point we get flooded, we'll set up like a website and we'll do it properly. Maybe that's March, April. I'm not quite sure. We are monitoring it. If you have any concerns or questions, you can write to us. And if we get into Q2 and we've got thousands of people exercising options, that's great. It means we've been successful. And so bring that on. So with those thoughts, I will wrap up here. I think had a bit of a mishap at the start of the call, but I can see that a lot of people have stayed the duration. We've got a couple of hundred people on the call, so I'm glad you found the link. I've gone a bit over time today. It was deliberate. I normally say an hour, but I wanted to give people a good sense of what we're trying to achieve at the start of the year. And it's complex. We're working across effectively 5 or 6 different projects, and there are different stages of development, and we're looking to ramp the company like really, really significantly. We're in a great position to do so. There's a real dedicated drive, at the company. I can sense that everyone's come back ready to go. There's a lot of focus and determination in the team, and there's a lot of muscle memory from last year. So sitting here at the start of the year, I'm very, very optimistic on what's ahead. I know that we'll be assessed on certain corporate milestones, and that's well and good. But I can also assure you that I'm holding a few cards very close to my chest, and there will be some massive surprises this year in a good way. So it's going to be fascinating to see how it all plays out. And as always, we're very much focused on delivering for shareholders and stakeholders. That concept of alignment has been true north for Tivan since we started. And even sitting here today at the start of our fourth year, it remains, true north for the board, for our team, and hopefully for all of you. So I'll leave it there at the end of a long investor briefing. Thank you very much for being here tonight. Spread the word, share the replay. It'll be up later tonight on YouTube. Thank you.